Like, I was in the train station yesterday and I got stopped by a guy and he was like, with his girlfriend. He was like, mate, just want to say thank you for telling my story. I was like, deeper.
And this is for black boys who have considered suicide, but decided that our stories must be told and our joy forever rising.
Let a black boy move. Let him shake and shuffle without fear.
Pow!
What you know about me? Let him step into his promise. Don't you dare hold him back. His history is no longer in hostage.
And our strength, as much as our vulnerability, has got to be as strong as our ancestors.
Thank you so much for agreeing to do the interview with me. I really appreciate it, your time and your energy, because I can imagine that what you're doing on stage is quite heavy, also like emotionally, mentally. So I really do appreciate that you sit down with me to have this conversation. And I'd just like you to kind of like introduce yourself first and talk about a bit about your history, where you grew up, maybe a little bit about your career, and yeah, let my audience know who you are.
My name is Albert Magashi. I play Sable in the show. I was born in Bulgaria, moved to the UK when I was 3, and I've been in Northwest London, played lots of sports growing up. I thought that would be the path I went along, but then at age, I don't know, 13, I think I signed up for a Saturday school, which I think my parents threw me in just to keep me occupied and not doing bad things or getting involved with God knows what. And then I was singing, dancing and acting on Saturdays, and then playing football on Sundays, and it got to a point where I had to choose between acting or like continuing with football, and then I just loved performing more, so I chose performing, then got a scholarship to go to this performing arts school, and then just been continuing ever since.
My name is Posi Morakinyo. I grew up in Northampton in the Midlands, but both my parents migrated from Nigeria, and I was there for 16 years.
In Nigeria?
No, in Northampton.
Okay.
Was there, and yeah, to be honest, I was like, I didn't really do anything growing up. Like, I went to church a lot. My parents were pastors, so I was like raised in the church, I'd say. School was a fun time. I went to an all-boys school, so...
Did you?
Yeah. Went to an all-boys school. Everyone there was quite sport-heavy, so also I was involved in sport, but the passion side of things was like dance, and yeah, it was mainly dance, actually. And that gave me the passion to kind of take it up as a career. I didn't really know it could be a thing until I went to performing arts school, same as Albert, and also was fortunate to get a scholarship to go. And in training there, it kind of opened my eyes to the creative world, which is now where we find ourselves.
Yeah.
So going actually to like talking about the black masculinity that the play is really and truly about, and how it explores the different nuances around it. It's interesting now because you said you went into, like, you was going to do football and then you went into theater, and also thinking about the singing and dancing part, which is often like within the black community or in general, you can look at masculinity and say, oh, singing and dancing is not necessarily like also a masculine thing. And that's why I kind of loved also watching the play. You guys are like embracing each other, you're hugging, you're like dancing. And even when Onyx, who is like the really masculine, like kind of roadman, I would say, of the show. And when you see him doing certain dance moves, I realized like, oh, wow, how it's actually really not within the community is really not seen often, like that masculinity and the dancing and singing is soft part of things. So as the play explores black masculinity, what did you kind of like explore? How did your character explore the nuances within black masculinity and, like, you know, the out of the box versions of black masculinity, and how does your character within the play individually explore that?
You know, it's interesting. I think the whole play is an observation on the whole black male experience. So for my character, Sable, he has a monologue where he talks about his promiscuity and finding his self-worth from getting with lots of women, and how he gets the validation from his peers from that. And he even has a line in the show where he says, "The first time my boys heard about my exploits was the first time I was ever called a man," which I think is very telling and shows how important male father figures and role models are in shaping what our perceptions of manhood is, you know? Yeah.
I think for me, when I look at someone like Midnight, who I'm fortunate enough to play, and I look at maybe some of the backgrounds he's found himself in, Midnight, his language is music, which a lot of black people converse in music. You know, if you don't quite have the words to say something, a song can do that for you. I know, like, there's lots of my personal moments that are soundtracked by music. So I know, like, it's weird to think about black men singing, but when they really lean into it, it's so powerful. We look at, like, Boys to Men, we look at Jodeci, we look at some of these, like, black icons who have devoted themselves to music, and we don't bat an eyelid.
Yeah.
But if we think about someone like Onyx singing a song, everyone starts giggling. So it's interesting thinking about black masculinity being so far away from things like song and dance, when historically, when black men lean into those things, it changes the world. Like, we look at the Kanyes and the Jay-Z's, and even like Chris Brown, when he starts doing his tutting and his, everyone loses their minds. So I think I'm fortunate enough to play a role like Midnight, who his language is that. Like, he wears a t-shirt that's Frank Ocean's album cover. Do you know what I mean? So he's actually soaked in the world of music. There's a line in the play where he says, "I barely knew my ABCs, but I already knew that love don't cost a thing. And I'm not always there when you're cool, but I'm always on time, and I gave you," do you know what I mean? Like, those things aren't just entertainment, they kind of sculpt you. They can heal you, they can take you to a place or out of a place. So yeah, it's quite interesting thinking about black males and what it means to be a man. And like, when you think about a song, you're like, black men singing. But put four of them together with a tight harmony and everyone loses their minds.
They're like, yeah. This is very...
Talking also about you being like an all-black cast, and I guess that doesn't happen a lot as an actor in the West End in theatre within the UK, and also that the creative team is not all black, but it's mostly black. Talk a little bit about what that means to you as an actor, and how that kind of like empowers you, gives you, I guess, a safe space also, because these topics here, they're not light-hearted topics. There must be things in there that really touch you personally. Like you say, you're telling stories of many black men that can identify with these stories, and then you probably personally as well. So it's not just acting out a play, there's a piece of yourself in the play and in who you're playing. So what does it mean to you to have like an all-black cast and also a mostly black creative team behind you?
I think having a predominantly black creative team, and not just creative, we also have black producers. For me, is the perfect gateway into getting into the art, because as black people stepping into spaces that were not normally welcomed, there are so many things you have to overcome or clear before you can get into the work. But being in a space where people already understand you, from basic understanding, like our director Ryan Calais Cameron is a black boy, do you know what I mean? So already we're speaking the same language, we're reading from the same hymn sheet, we understand each other on a level. Now when we get into the art, I don't have to continuously inform you of who I am, because you know who I am. We're quite similar actually. Whereas in other spaces, being a black person is hard. Do you know what I mean? Let's just call a spade a spade. But being a black artist is even more difficult, because the level of excellence you have to come with to level your other rivals of other ethnic backgrounds is difficult. You have to do more than your counterparts to be seen as the same. But here, everybody's the same. We're all black. So nobody has to do or say anything to prove themselves. You're already accepted. Changes the game. And when we're tackling things that are so intimate and so personal, it's really important that when you look around, you see safety. You see familiarity. You see your own kind. Because then you're more inclined to being more open, to being more vulnerable, to feeling like you can occupy and exist in those spaces. It's very important. And having black performers is one thing, but having black creators, whole nother game.
So important.
I've been a part of all black casts that are run by a white creative team, which is interesting because it's not bad, but when we're sharing the black experience, having somebody driving the ship that doesn't actually share that experience is difficult. So when we're tackling things like racism on a bus, going through, racist states in America, the director won't have any experience or nuances in being in that kind of situation. But Ryan does. Do you know what I mean? So from like an actor to a director standpoint, I already feel safe. He can note me because he's been there.
He gets it.
I think that's been a blessing, having kinfolk on this job.
Yeah, I completely second everything you said, and I think there's just the shorthand in regards to the communication and feeling comfortable and safe doing some of these monologues where you can pull your director to the side and speak on a one-to-one, knowing that he himself not only understands but has gone through a similar experience. And then in regards to the producers and having people behind who are steering the ship who understand and get it and have your best intentions at heart, it's vital, I think, in creating authentic work.
And can you tell me a little bit about a moment where you were acting or you had playing out the play as a practice or maybe on stage where it really touched you because you could personally relate and you kind of used it as a tool of introspection for yourself?
That's a great question. I think for me, even when I first saw the play, I saw pieces of myself in each character. And then when we sat down for our table read, in the first week, we did long sessions where we broke down the script unit by unit, talking about what everything meant and exploring that and going deeper and seeing what our thoughts on certain things were. For me, one moment that I still think about is during Fella's monologue where he talks about his dad, and he says, his dad in the monologue says, I had to choose between my health and being a man. And I look at a lot of the male figures in my life who are all so incredibly strong and stoic and refuse to show any sense of vulnerability because they're worried that they'll be seen as weak, much like we talk about in the show. And I've had multiple people who I love dearly see the show, who are black men, 40 plus, that said, I wish I had something like this when I was younger, because I see in their eyes that this has given them the license to be a bit more vulnerable, and to know that it's okay. And I think, looking at myself, I think I've probably inherited some of that, where I'm the type of guy where I kind of try to preserve face, but this play has made me realize that it's okay to speak and be like, yo, this is how I'm feeling. And then you can be like, oh wait, I kind of feel the same way. And it's just allowing each other to lean on each other when we need it. That's what I think.
I think in you saying that, even within Fella, who plays Jet, within that monologue where he speaks about his dad having prostate cancer, at the end of his speech, he says, I wonder if he knew he was enough just the way he was, would he still be here? And I always think about, why do I think I have to do the most to be accepted? Why must I be singing my throat out, doing backflips, do you know what I mean, standing on my head and doing all of these things just to be enough, when my very existence is enough? But when you're told that, like, you're not told, you're informed by the way life treats you. Also, Onyx in the play has a moment where he says, look, I know black boys ain't supposed to need love. And I can't lie, I felt like that. I felt like, I don't think I need love to operate in this world, because the world don't show no love. So I'm like, that clearly must be the way forward, but that's not true. It's owning myself, being comfortable within myself, even when I'm in uncomfortability. When everyone around me may be saying something, I have to go and inform myself that what they're saying isn't true. I should not believe the lies of the enemy. I have to know what the truth is and stand on that. And hopefully, if all of us together communally do that, then we will be enough just the way we are. We will force people, in fact not force, we will encourage people to accept us, that we are enough just the way we are.
You guys were up there and we were showing like a certain level of vulnerability on stage. Obviously that's what the play is also about, and you are all hugging each other. And I remember when the first part ends, it's with like a love song, and then as you end the first part, it's like it goes slower into the love song, and then it ends. And then I was saying, I think the second part is going to be about romance and about love.
Got it, Ryan. Well done, Ryan. There you go.
And then I had this moment of, first part you go through all the nuances of black manhood and masculinity, and then the second part, the romance, the women kind of come in, like the experiences as women. And I was like, dating black men is like, like every woman you can roll into this thing of man this and man that and man, but it gave me like a new awareness and a new level of grace for the man I'm dating.
He's grateful, I'm sure.
Yes. No, sure. Also going into what I think I love about our community is like there's so many unwritten looks and kind of gestures and kind of like also references we use in our language and things like that, which you really displayed really well within the play. Can you talk a little bit about how important that is to you as being part of the play, and how it kind of like distinguishes this play from other plays or projects you've been working on?
As black people, sometimes you're silenced. And we have found an incredible way of communicating without words. Like, I knew if I was in church and I was acting a fool, my mum shoots me a look and I know exactly what she's saying. Do you know what I mean? Or we're in a moment where nobody can utter a sound, but something happens and you look to your friend like, "Oh, did you see that?" Because I know I saw that. I think it's like seeing a friendly face on stage. When you have that moment between like you and your boy and you go, "Oh, did you see that girl walk past? Yeah, she was cute." But you can't say that out loud because she might hear you. You know what I mean? I think it's tapping into the way that black people have learned to communicate with one another. We have built a language that doesn't necessarily use words. But with an eye position, you know exactly what they're saying. With a head tilt or a toe tap or a tut, you're like, "Oh, I know what that means." So to show other forms of communication, and also to code, to talk to our black community without the white man knowing. Do you know what I mean? Because even on that stage, best believe there is stuff that's going way over some people's heads. Way over. Oh.
But if you get it, you get it.
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
So the play also touches on the idea of like the black man being intimidating. When I was reading, there was one particular part in the brochure that really hit me. It's like, and somebody was saying, I don't know which one of you it was, somebody was saying, and then I realized, when did you realize I was scary? And I was like, that one that really hit deep. So I kind of wanted to talk about that in terms of like, when did you realize that you're intimidating to the rest of the world, and how did that feel, and how does that feel right now? How does that kind of like shape your manhood?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I keep seeing this reel on my Instagram about like when you see a white person or someone in your neighborhood and you have to do this thing to notify them that you're not gang affiliated or you're not gonna steal their purse. But I live in Northwest London and I find myself almost without even thinking, every time I walk past an elderly white couple or a man or a woman, and you can see them looking at you. You can see them tense up a little bit, and as soon as you do, they ease up. And you have to do it. Otherwise, it's this awkward energy. It shouldn't be like this.
At all.
But I don't know how you feel. But isn't it mad? Isn't it mad?
It's insane. Being in listen, when I think about an old white lady and a young black boy, in my eyes, I should be scared of that old white lady. Because the power that she has is crazy. But for some reason, I'm the one that's putting you at ease. Because you're in that situation, and I know it's difficult because you want to feel safe, you want to feel comfortable in your own skin. But, I saw this quote the other day, and it said, You as a black person will always be viewed as a weapon when the colour of your skin is the gun. I was like, ew. Like, I will always be armed to certain people because I'm dark. And that looks like violence. That looks like trouble. And it's not. So when you see that elderly white lady and you give her that head nod, it's like, I'm actually leaning into the fact that I might be dangerous, and I'm not. So why am I head nodding? I'm gonna just keep it stepping. And it's empowering black people to not be ashamed of their blackness. Because if a policeman wants to stop me, I'll be like, and what, officer? What are you looking for? Drugs? Check me. Why should I be scared of being me? Why? And also, in him stopping me, I should have the confidence to ask, why? Why are you, is it because I'm black? Do I look like some hoodlum to you? Is that the problem? Not being ashamed of speaking up and standing on business. Like, I'm black and I'm safe. I'm black and I'm not a criminal. I'm black and I'm not a killer. Do you know what I mean? I'm just black. That's that. End of conversation. I realized growing up, and I'm a tall human being. So when you think about big people, they're already imposing, and you're black, long day. You know what I mean? It's a long day, but I have taught myself to not be ashamed of that.
Unapologetic.
I was in a class when I was training, and it was a voice lesson, but she was talking about posture. And when she looked at our posture, and I was hunched over, and she was asking me, like, why do you roll your shoulders? You look like you're hunched over. And I was like, I don't know. She was like, are you trying to make yourself small? And I thought about it. I was like, that's crazy. The fact that I even fear to stand in my body, like proudly and boldly, because I want to make other people feel comfortable. Hell no. What? If I'm this big and I'm this tall, I should own it. I should take up space, and I shouldn't be ashamed of that. I think black people need to be less concerned with what everybody else thinks about them and be more concerned with what we think about ourselves. Because if I keep listening to everybody else, I'm going to think that maybe I am dangerous. Maybe I am maybe I am aggressive, and I'm not. So if you want to think that over there, you can stay over there with your thoughts. But the party here is saying that we're awesome, we should be celebrated, we're creative, we're gorgeous, we're intelligent, we're smart beings. We are. And we'll wait for you to catch up.
One thing I wanted to say as well is, like, what really made me feel safe, it actually makes me feel safe seeing black men giving each other safety.
Oh, gorgeous.
And embracing, just giving each other a hug.
Because I feel like, because sometimes it seems like because black men are sometimes often scared to show vulnerability amongst you guys. So then it feels like maybe then I feel like you have to show it with me. Then you guys sometimes don't want to show it with women neither. So you don't get to do it at all. So that makes me even worry more. So now when I saw you guys being vulnerable on stage, I was like, it made me feel so safe. And apart from obviously, I was talking about giving black men extra grace. How else can we support you as women, but generally the community? What do you think?
I think a nice little cuddle.
Little kiss on the cheek.
Little kiss on the cheek, you know what I mean? I think what you said about being grace and kind of giving grace and being patient is a massive thing. Supporting, I think
it's kind of like, the grace is a great point, you know, having that grace, but I also think space would be really nice. To have the space to... Like, oh no!
Apart from that?
I think it'd be really cool to to be in a place where you have this space to figure out what does your vulnerability look like and how do you want to communicate your vulnerability. Because a lot of the time it's like, we need to be vulnerable in this way. And it's like, I don't know how I want to be vulnerable. I haven't explored my vulnerability yet. So, and in having space, there needs to be availability. Because I feel like a lot of the time, well, for me, I'll talk from my experience, is there's pressure. Do you know what I mean? And you've got to get it right. And if you don't get it right, you don't get another chance at it. So there's a pressure on it. And if that pressure eases up, like if there's room to get it wrong, if there's room to be, you know, authentically oneself, then I'll be way more comfortable around people. And that's not just black women. That's just people in general. Because if you think about children, they're given all of the opportunities to get it right. If they get it wrong, you don't just cancel them out. You learn from your mistakes. But I feel like black men may feel like they're defined by their mistakes, so they don't want to mess up. And as a human, it's impossible to not mess up. So if you're given the space and the grace to mess up, you're more likely going to mess up less.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And it made me realize about how you don't dictate to somebody how to be vulnerable. But we're talking about men and crying, and then lots of men are like, I don't want to cry. Like, this is not my thing. I don't want to break down in front of you. And then women are like, but you have to cry.
It's sad. Yeah, it's sad. You're like, what?
More pressure.
Like, yeah.
Yes. Okay, last question. As an actor for Black Boy, what message do you hope the audience takes away?
Check on your loved ones, ask if they're okay. And if someone's not ready to be open and vulnerable, I'd say have the courage to be the first to be brave and be vulnerable, because that might give them the confidence to be vulnerable with you. That's what I like to think.
In this day and age, I think it's really important that we are hyper-focused on our emotions and our mental well-beings.
Yeah.
But sometimes the action can be way more important for your mental health than the thought. I.e., sometimes get out of your head and be in the real world, and that can shape your mental well-being. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
So it's very important to think about how you feel about things and where you're at, but sometimes the action can inform your feelings. If you're in a space where you're really struggling, don't be afraid to make a move, because that might completely shift your mindset. Don't stay where you are. Please, acknowledge where you are, but don't stay
Go
there.
outside.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Yes, this was amazing. I was really nervous, but I kind of caught myself. Thank you so much. That's all I can say. And thank you for not just for being here, but for doing this play. It is truly ancestral, and it really, who knows, it could be somebody's lifeline. It is probably somebody's lifeline. So thank you very much. Yes. Yes. Nice to meet you as well. Yes. Lovely.
It's a wrap.
Yes.